I always thought working the night shift at McDonald's would be quiet, uneventful, even boring at times. But last week, something happened that changed everything. If you had told me before that I'd witnessed something so terrifying, I wouldn't have believed you. But now, I don't know if I'll ever be able to shake what I saw that night, or who or what was really there. It was a typical Thursday night, around 1:45 a.m. I'd been working the graveyard shift at a McDonald's just off the highway for about 6 months. Most nights were calm, with only a handful of customers stopping by after midnight. Truckers, late-night travelers, maybe the occasional insomniac. I was fine with that. It meant I could get my work done, maybe listen to music or clean up early. My coworker, Jenny, had just left, and the place was empty, the way it usually was. The dim lighting inside the restaurant gave everything a strange, almost eerie vibe, but I'd gotten used to it. I wasn't expecting anything unusual. I didn't know then that the next few hours would haunt me for a long time. Around 2 a.m., I was wiping down the counter when I noticed headlights pull into the drive-thru lane. A single car moving slowly, like the driver was unsure whether they wanted to stop. I waited for them to reach the speaker, but something about the way they approached caught my attention. The car was too slow, crawling like it didn't belong on the road at all. When they finally stopped at the order board, I greeted them through the speaker the same way I had hundreds of times before. "Hi, welcome to McDonald's. What can I get for you tonight?" Silence, no response. I waited a few seconds, then repeated the greeting, maybe a little louder. Still no answer. I leaned in closer to the monitor, wondering if maybe the speaker was broken or if the driver just hadn't heard me. The car stayed still, its headlights glaring into the night, but no sound. No movement. Nothing. I glanced at the camera feed, squinting at the grainy black and white image of the car. Something about it was off. It looked like an old model, early 90s maybe, but it was in terrible shape. The paint was peeling, the windows dark and cloudy. But what really unsettled me was that I couldn't see the driver at all. It was as if the inside of the car was cloaked in shadows, even though the headlights were on full blast. I felt a knot forming in my stomach, but I brushed it off. Maybe the driver was having car trouble or they were distracted. I stepped away from the monitor and decided to peek out the side window to get a better look. As I moved closer to the glass, I expected to see someone leaning over to check the menu, maybe fumbling for their wallet. But as I approached, my heart skipped a beat. The driver's side window slowly rolled down, but not in the way you'd expect. It creaked, painfully slow, like the car hadn't been used in years. I leaned in just a bit, trying to make out who was inside. All I could see was a pale hand extending from the window. It was unnaturally white, almost sickly. The hand just sat there, suspended in the air, before it slowly turned and pointed directly at me. I froze. Everything in me screamed to back away, but I couldn't move. My eyes were locked on that hand, so still, so pale, like it didn't belong to a living person. Then, as suddenly as it had appeared, the hand withdrew, disappearing back into the shadows of the car. Without warning, the vehicle sped off, screeching around the corner toward the pickup window. I rushed back to the counter, my heart pounding in my chest. I expected them to pull up to the window to confront me in person, but when I looked, nothing. The car was gone. It hadn't pulled through, it hadn't left the drive-thru. It had vanished. I glanced outside. The parking lot was empty, not a single car in sight. There was no way they could have driven off without me hearing or seeing it. That's when I heard it, the crackling of the drive-thru speaker coming to life again. A voice, low, distorted, came through the speaker, barely more than a whisper. "Are you alone?" it asked. I nearly jumped out of my skin. My first instinct was to turn off the speaker, but before I could move, the voice spoke again. "I'm watching you." I stared at the monitor, my pulse racing, expecting something, anything, to appear on the screen. But there was nothing, just the static of the speaker. Then the lights in the kitchen flickered. It was just for a second, but in that moment, the entire restaurant felt wrong. I don't know how else to explain it, but it was as if the air had changed. Colder, heavier. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. Not just through the camera, but from somewhere inside. My mind raced. There was no one here, I was sure of it. But then, from the corner of my eye, I saw something move. A dark figure just behind the counter, standing in the shadow of the kitchen. My heart stopped. It was tall, much taller than anyone I'd ever seen. The figure didn't move. It just stood there, watching me. I tried to focus, but the lights flickered again, making it impossible to see clearly. My hands were shaking. I wanted to run, to call someone, but my legs felt like they were made of lead. The figure moved, stepping closer to the edge of the counter. My body finally caught up with my fear. I stumbled backward, knocking over a stack of trays as I scrambled to the back of the kitchen. My phone was in my pocket, but my hands were trembling so badly, I could barely grip it. I dialed the manager's number, praying they'd pick up. When I glanced back toward the counter, the figure was gone. Just vanished. I was alone again, or at least I thought I was. I stayed on the phone with my manager until they arrived, my eyes locked on the kitchen, waiting for any sign of movement. When they finally got there, they checked the cameras, combed through every inch of the place, but found nothing. No car, no figure, no sign of anyone being there but me. They told me it was probably just stress or exhaustion, but I know what I saw. The car. The hand. That figure. It was real. I haven't been able to sleep since, and every time I close my eyes, I see it standing there, watching. I quit that job the next morning. I couldn't stay, not after what happened. Now, whenever I pass by that McDonald's, I can't help but feel like something is still there, watching, waiting for the next person to show up on the night shift. Whatever it was, it wasn't human. And I don't think it's gone. If you ever find yourself working late at night in a place that feels just a little too quiet, be careful. You never know who or what might be lurking in the shadows, watching you, just waiting for the right moment to make themselves known.